Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host, and I'm so glad that you're here. Today on the podcast, I speak with Kim Walsh Phillips and Justin Guarini, who have created the Elite Speakers Network. With her business skills and his entertainment skills, they help people stand on stages all across America and across the world to do what they were gifted and created to do. Our word of the week this week
It's the word of the week.
is impact. She teaches how you get gigs booked and how you can do things effectively and make money and do well. He teaches you how to stand on a stage and use your voice and use your body language. But the thing that they really impacted me with was the fact that they want people to make an impact. It's not just about talking, it's not just about making money, it's about making an impact with the story that you are passionate to tell. I loved hearing their story. I loved learning the tips and tricks that they talked about while we were having a conversation. They were so much fun to talk to. And I think for anybody who wants to be a speaker, who maybe thinks that they can't, like I have, I think you're going to learn a lot today. And I hope you'll join their program and see how it helps you, because I believe it will be effective in helping you with your calling. Thanks for being here today. Have a great day. So, what I would love to hear from both of you is what you're doing now and how and why you came together to create the Elite Speakers Network.
We would love to. And the thing that we do is we tell each other's story, and there's a lesson in that when people hear us talk about ourselves, when they've never met you before, it has a 14% believability because they know you're telling your own story and you're going to tell the highlight reel. But when someone else tells your story, it has an 87% believability rating. Think about it. When you go to book a trip at a hotel, and then you see the beautiful hotel website, the pool, the beach. A client recently flew us to Jamaica to work with him. And before I said yes to the hotel, what did I do? I didn't just look at the hotel website. I went to TripAdvisor to see what other people said about the hotel. Because when we get to see what other people say, it means more. So 87% of people believe that. So if someone else tell your story, it is a much higher believability rating because now it's not you saying about yourself, it's someone else. So it's my honor to get to tell you that Justin Guarini was on season 1 of American Idol. He performed in front of 30 million people. He went on to star as a principal role in 7 different Broadway shows and is the character behind Dr. Pepper is a Little Sweet, and currently is a voice on Disney Junior's Super Kitties. And I had the privilege and honor of meeting Justin during the pandemic, where he was shifting from in-person live events to needing to figure out how to switch all this into the online virtual space because that's what needed to happen in the pandemic. At the same time, I was doing the same thing. So we both find ourselves on the app Clubhouse. We meet each other on that app and in a room where we were both on stage sharing our expertise. We instantly meshed. I invited him to be an in-person MC at one of our virtual events. He came to the studio. And behind the scenes during the breaks, most MCs would be goofing around or on their phone. But Justin was in the green room working on something. I said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I have a coaching business I'm growing." I said, "What? You do?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I can help you with that. That's what I do." And I'll let you take it from there, Justin.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I knew that Kim, just based on what I had heard as her MC at that event, I knew that Kim's thoughts around marketing and messaging and storytelling were on point. I have never in my life MC'd an event where I ask one of the team members, "Hey, do you have the workbook?" And I start working on that workbook myself and start filling out all the things. And so it was evident then that Kim not only knew what she was talking about, but that she had a wealth of experience. And I would later come to find out that not only did she have her own marketing company that landed her on the Inc. 5000 list at 479, I think it is,
Hi.
right? 475. It's so close. I'm like, niner. Did I throw a niner? 475 on the Inc. 5000 list. But that she was the secret behind Kevin Mr. Wonderful O'Leary's run of a couple of the properties that he invested in on Shark Tank, a lot of them
Mhm.
actually, that she co-authored a book with Dan S. Kennedy called the No BS Guide to Social Media Marketing, which
Awesome.
is Dan Kennedy's best-selling book. And if you know anything about marketing and you've gone deep in there, you know that Dan's one of the old school characters. And then everything that I heard Kim talking about on Clubhouse led me to say, yes, I want to be a part of what it is that you're doing, and even in an MC role, because the way you're able to hear someone's message
Mhm.
and look at someone's business and help them to discover and uncover like the perfect fit market, the perfect fit story, the perfect fit message to deliver to them. I've never seen anyone do it with the speed and the accuracy and the breadth of experience across
Mhm.
so many helping so many different people from different walks of life and different niches tell not just their story, but tell their
Yeah.
story in a way that is compelling to the person that they want to serve. And so that's when I said, yes, I want you to be my coach. Thank you very much. And we ended up working together. And as Kim got to know what I do better, Kim would ask me to come in and work with her coaching clients on their performance on the camera, on the stage. And it was not that long after that Kim was invited to be on the Bravo show Below Deck Sailing. And so Kim loves to talk about how she invited me to be on a TV show.
My guess, baby, my guess.
I was her guest on a big TV show, Bravo's number one TV show to be exact. And
I'm just
so
waiting
we
for
were,
you to return the favor, by the way, but continue on with the story.
listen, I got time. I got time. You just let me tell my story, lady, and
Okay,
we'll
okay.
go. Well, don't you worry. I got it. Well, I'll come back around to that. And so we found ourselves in the Mediterranean on this boat, and Kim and I were actually coaching the people on the boat on their performance and their messaging and like and one of the
Wow.
producers came up to us and said, hey, do you guys do this? And we were like, well, I mean, kind of. And so the producer said, well, I think you're onto something. Like, this is really cool. And so Kim and I fly back to America, and when we're in the customs line,
I
we're
forgot
we
we got
kind of
Glenn Shepherd as a client from the
well,
show.
yes, I know, yes, it was
The
gonna be yes.
company we didn't have yet, but anyway,
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah. We were like, yeah, sure. And so we ended up talking to Glenn Shepherd, who is currently the captain of the Parsival. And he's like, yeah, I'll work with you guys. And we're like, great, cool, awesome. We've got to figure out what the company is now. Because we knew that what we would do works, right? But we just had to figure out the right steps in the right order. And so as we were in customs coming back into America, we're like, hey, do we want to try this? Want to go for it? And that's exactly what we did.
That's awesome. I love it. So who is an ideal client for your network? Who is the ideal person to come to you that could truly benefit from what you're doing?
and I love that you asked the question that way because what you said was who is your ideal client versus audience, which is another big key
Yeah.
takeaway. Tell people stop thinking about this big room of humans because then your marketing is not going to be specific. It's not going to be impactful. It's not going to reach anybody. When you actually think about one person,
Mhm.
every time you create something, it is so much more effective. So our right fit client, we call him Alex, and we want you to get that specific that you name this
Yeah.
person. Alex already owns a business and he's awesome. He does great work, but he is so tired of being the best kept secret. He is so
Mhm.
tired of relying upon word of mouth and referral, which he can't control to grow his company. He may have invested some time and money in marketing, but it hasn't produced the results he wants. He's been in some kind of performing arts in the past, like theater, band, DJing, his family parties, the debate team, the speech team, and he wants to leverage the power of the stage in order to grow his business. He may have spoken on stage before, but he didn't get paid or didn't get paid very much to do it. And the stages he's spoken on weren't very big, and he desires to impact more lives. That's who we target. It is that specific. And I use that languaging every time I speak. Justin uses that languaging every time he speaks. And because of that, we've built this incredible incredible community of humans who
Yeah.
want to make impact and income and want to do it from the stage.
That's
And
awesome.
we then share that message with our community. And a client of ours, after he got that right fit message for that right fit client,
Mhm.
ended up on one of his talks generating six clients, just six clients, getting him $18,000 a month in recurring
Wow.
revenue. Now,
Great.
look, we think we
That's
want to, like, this
wild.
is recurring revenue, right? So think
Yeah.
about it. We want to have 100 clients,
Right.
but there might be 100 clients that aren't the quite right fit, and they come and they go and they cause problems. If you could just have six clients, just
Right.
like our client, who were giving you a consistent return on your investment of time that you put in them every single month. I mean, that was $18,000 for him. And it's not just a few
Yeah.
months. He's had those clients for years and many more on top of that. But
Wow.
it was that foundation there that ended
Mhm.
up just completely shifting the way he did business, and ultimately the way he was able to do even more business in the future.
That's
And we talk
awesome.
about impact, right? Like we work with people who want both. And for him, that his name is Howard Globus, and he runs an IT firm. He
Mhm.
calls himself a cybersecurity and evangelist, a cybersecurity evangelist. He is literally feels like he's on this earth to protect people from people who will hack their computers
Wow.
and protect
Mhm.
kids from the evils of the internet. And so for him, that was huge for bringing in the financial freedom that brought. That I already know every month going into it, I'm gonna have $18,000 to cover my operating expenses, to pay my salary. Like that's huge. But even better, he knows that he has another month to make sure that these companies and their employees and their families are protected. So
Yeah.
when you reach people this way, you are able to generate revenue and able to change people's lives at the same time, which is why we love our industry so much.
Yes. So what about somebody who wants to do that but has not doesn't have a background in the arts, doesn't have a background in speaking or any how can you help them?
Well, I don't think they should do this. I think they should just say like, no.
Okay.
But I mean, so the words you just said, the reason why I'm kidding around about that, people might say something like, "Well, I could never. I get scared, or I could never. I've not been on a big stage, or I could never. I'm too old, or I could never. I don't know." And when we do the "I could not," we take the ownership away from ourselves and our ability to choose.
Yeah.
Instead, when we say what you asked, which was a great question, how can I? It
Hmm.
actually makes it a choice that we get to decide on what we want to do. So if we haven't done it before, one of the easiest things you can do is just to think of this question. There's like 4 steps we take people through. I'm going to walk you, everyone listening right now, is how to create an effective talk and get on stages to make an impact. Number one, you pick the person you want to serve. We talked now in the beginning. Who's that
Right.
person you dream of? It's either somebody you're already helping, you want to help, or it's who you were 3 years ago. Number two, you choose a problem that they have that you can solve. Okay. Number three, you choose a story about a time where either you solved that problem yourself or a client solved that problem. And
Yeah.
number four, you walk them through the solutions to solve that problem. You don't have to give them all the how, you more tell them the what, right? So you tell
Okay.
them the how they can in a way that's not giving the minutia tactics or details. Okay. So if that's the strategy, we've never spoken on a stage before, how can we start to become comfortable like that? Well, you could start to test this when people ask you a question about that. Typically, if there's something you want to talk about, it's a question friends or family or colleagues might come to you to ask.
Yeah.
And every time they ask you, start working on this as the model you can tell that story and tell that answers. Go on podcasts, start being interviewed about this and telling those stories. Try to do a Zoom, a friends, family, or clients that you have to give them this information, test it in there, and then start bringing it to a free stage. Free local stages are great,
Yeah.
like the Rotary Club, the Chamber, Kiwanis. They are all looking for speakers regularly. It's a smaller group, although I'm going to tell you a little secret. I mean, I've spoken in front of audiences now. I started in front of 3 people in a library, but now I've spoken in front of 5,000 in Dubai.
Wow.
I've gone there, but I still would get more nervous speaking in front of peers in my own community at like the
Yeah.
local Rotary. Club because you worry more what people think. So if you're going to start small, I actually recommend you don't start with the Kiwanis, the Rotary, or the Chamber in your own town.
Yeah.
Do one about 2 hours away because
Okay.
then it's close enough to drive to, or even an hour away. It's close enough to drive to, but you won't have that pressure of knowing people in the room. And the
Sure.
more of those small things you do, you're going to get proof that you can use not just for others to book you, but to yourself that you
Yeah.
are the right person to be sharing this message. If we take ourselves along that stepped process, we're going to be owning our confidence every step of the way and be able to show up with so much more joy and ease when we actually speak on those big stages.
That makes
Yeah, and I think
sense.
that yeah, and that it's so awesome, and because I think you just witnessed like so much of Kim's brilliance, the
Hmm.
strategies, the tactics, the mindsets. And I just want to dive a little bit into from a performance aspect of the mindset of what you're asking, which is, well, I've never done it before. And I can't, before we began this interview, you said, I can't get up on a stage in front of people. That terrifies me.
Hmm.
And so many people say the same exact thing to us. And what I want you and the listener to recognize is that that just makes you human. That makes you
Mhm.
perfectly normal. Everyone and anyone at any stage feels the way you feel to some lesser or greater degree.
Yeah.
When we work with high level, high net worth clients and they get off the stage after they have just one of them one of them sold over $1 million from the stage in potential revenue, right? And then and got on the stage and said the same thing as someone who is just coming back from their first Rotary or a little small group thing. Everyone says the same thing. How
Yeah.
did I
How
do?
did I do?
Yeah.
How did I do? That's it. That's the question. How did I do? I mean, the roof could be blown off the place with the applause that's happening, but they'll say, how did I do? What'd you think? And so no one was born with the microphone in their hand. No one
Right.
was taken from the operating room and then put directly on a stage after that. It is a skill
Mm.
that anyone can learn, just like tying your shoes, just like riding your bike, just like brushing your teeth, these things that we take for granted that are just parts of our lives. And so the same thing goes with that feeling of nervousness, that feeling of anxiety. That's normal. That's
Yeah.
supposed to be there. It's what stops us from walking out into traffic or
Right.
accidentally falling off a cliff when we look and we get that feeling in our
Yeah.
stomachs, right? That is, our brain is designed to keep us safe. And yet, when we want to serve, when we feel a calling and a passion to do something, we don't have to work against that feeling. We
Yeah.
can work with our emotions. We can work with our fears, work with our doubts, and turn our fears into fuel, our anxiety into anticipation. And the strategies and tactics that Kim just spoke about is part of that pathway, part of that journey. It is getting out there and just doing the thing and
Yeah.
recognizing I feel these feelings. It's okay. I do know what I'm talking about. In the places where I feel insecure, my experience of speaking more about it is going to give me more experience,
Yeah.
more security, more understanding. I'm going to get questions I never thought I needed to answer. And then in my speech, I'm going to start answering those questions before people ask them the next time. I mean, it is just a part of the process. And we are, as at the time of this recording, heading into election season,
Yeah.
and it is wild. And the only thing I will say about it is that you know we see the candidates like really start paying attention a couple weeks before the election, maybe a month. That's what most people do.
Right.
And they have these polished presentations and they're talking about whatever they're talking about, and it all seems like it's in order. But what we don't see is, in a normal election cycle, the year to year and
Right.
a half where they kind of stink. I mean, every presidential candidate who has either been elected or not been elected, they all are kind of bad, like in the beginning.
Yeah.
They don't quite have it together, but they do so many interviews and so many stump speeches and so much of this and so much of that, that by
Yeah.
the time it gets to the point where you're in front of that huge audience, in front of a global audience, You've told your stories 200 times. I'll
Yeah.
give you a better example because I can't stand politics. The I have a dream speech.
Yeah.
The I have a dream speech, he didn't just say, oh, you know, I got this thing I'm going to do in Washington,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to give this a shot. Martin Luther King told a version of the I have a dream speech over 200 times
Oh, wow.
before he stood and rocked the world with what it is that we have now.
Wow. I didn't
And
know
so
that.
it's
That's very cool.
all a part of the process.
Yeah. What kind of people join your network and join your programs? And I mean, like, are they all business owners? Are they all author, not all, but authors or
They're
business.
very, they're very, very serious, very committed. I mean, it is almost like monk-like in their way that they
I mean, it's people who know that they have a message on their heart
yeah,
or
Yeah.
head to get out to the world
yeah,
that they feel like they sometimes picture sand through the hourglass, literally like time's going by and they haven't yet realized this dream. They haven't reached the level of impact or change that they were created to make, and
Yeah.
they're willing to put the effort in to do it. So I'll say that for us, it's most important that it's people who have a history of being resilient and willing to take action when things aren't easy or convenient, because that's what's required, and that they have on their heart a great desire to impact the world. Those are our people.
Yeah. That's
yeah. They have
awesome.
a passion. They have a
Yeah.
passion and a burning desire and a calling.
Yeah.
And it could be tiny or it could be large, but there's just something inside them that says there's like more. I know there's more. I know there's more. And then when they come into our world, um, we love to use the phrase normalizing your greatness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you can be around other people who normalize your greatness, like for example, have you ever gone to your you find out this thing and you feel so passionate about it, and it is like a fire has been lit underneath you, and you go to your family and you go to your friends and you're like talking 6,000 miles an hour, and they just don't get it.
You're like,
Not
huh?
nothing. Yeah, and they just
Are
don't
you
get it.
sure? Wait, Tessa, are you sure you want to do that? Because they love
Yes,
you and they don't want you to take risks. That's why they
Right.
say that.
right.
But
Yeah, and they just, and it's not because they're bad. They just don't. They are not aligned with the same sort of
Right.
passion or the same sort of
ah,
understanding, or maybe there's fears and biases and family curses, generational curses as we call them, that like are standing in the way. And
Mhm.
yet you get around some other folks and it's all you can talk about together.
Yeah.
And it's this all boats rise. And so that's what we love to talk about and what we love to encourage inside of our community is just normalizing that greatness, that passion, that desire, and that fire inside of you.
Do y'all ever talk to podcast hosts? Is it all people on a physical stage, or do you talk to people who are wanting to just improve their communication skills in whatever area of work they're doing?
if you are a podcaster, then you should also take your talk to the stage. I'm just going to say this out right. I'm going to like put the
Oh,
statement out. I know, but that's okay. The feeling that you have is normal. And I also want you to understand that commanding a stage comfortably is a learnable skill. You're not just born with it.
yeah.
We have someone in our community that she was a Russian ballerina who
Wow.
forgot her moves on stage. She was part of the royal family, so she was told she created shame on the family because of what she did. So talk about fear of getting on the stage. Could you imagine your family
Yeah.
lineage being ruined because you forgot something? She had deep trauma. But
Yeah.
we walked her through this process of actually discovering that you don't, where you're sitting right now, if you get to a point of where you're sitting right now feels exactly the same as when you're on a stage, because it's just a physical location difference. You're still talking just like you are. If you get to that place, you
Yeah.
lose that deep paralyzing fear and you turn it into a excitement to serve the market. That is a learnable skill. We walked her through that process of stepping into that. And now not only does she speak on stages, she wins Toastmaster competitions.
Wow.
So if you are someone who's stepping into that fear, that's fine. That's okay. Like fear is not a problem. It's still a choice. Like, do I want to uncover how to do this differently? So yes, we have a lot of podcasters in our community
Okay.
because that's also one of those performing arts. You're using the power of your voice to share a
Yeah.
message with others to make a difference. And there are ways to still leverage all the wonderful, amazing things that Justin coaches on, from tonality to volume, inflection, pausing, increasing speed, decreasing, like all those same things that we share are the celebrity secrets he shares with our members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same things work for podcasting. Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. I will say this, when you talked about just repetitive and practicing, um, to me, in my brain, sitting in front of my computer by myself is so different than talking to, even though this goes all over the world, talking to a whole group of people. It's very different. And
Why?
when I did speak,
Can you tell me
why?
why?
Because it's just my computer. I don't see people looking at, I mean, there's two people looking at me, but I don't see a crowd of people looking at me.
So that's how you get comforted by that.
Yeah.
So how do you think, if you're already comfortable sitting where you are right now? Because what we say is most people they think in their mind, the way I change is I'm here and then I make this huge leap to where I want to go. And that's the least effective way to do a mindset shift. You actually want to give yourself small steps towards that change in mindset shift. And
Mhm.
so you know where you are now, you know where you want to go. What if you have two of us on here right now? So you're not just talking at your computer, you're talking to two people,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
What if you what if you had an informational session of everybody you interviewed in the past and talked about them, about like your interview process? Like, would you be willing to jump on with me for 10 minutes? I just want to ask you some questions about the interview process of our show and get some of your feedback and get your insights. And we're going to use this as a special gift for people who subscribe to the podcast as like a bonus gift to them. And I'm going to get your insights. That would be you presenting in front of 10 people. Now I've done 10 people. Okay. Or maybe you put the pictures of all of us who have done this before, and you put that in front of you on your screen when you record a video. So now you're seeing that. Then maybe you go and you invite a group of friends out to lunch to give you feedback on something. Now you're presenting in front of 6 people,
Yeah.
right? So like you just walk yourself through a pathway of speaking in front of more people. Like, okay, now I find myself, I'm using the same words. I'm working out the number of people. And then you use this phrase, okay? Because if we start to think, I can do this, I want to be the person who believes I can do anything, I can do that. It's not believable. It's not believable. And if
Right.
it's not believable, we can't hold on to it. So instead, you're going to use this mindset of, you know what? I'm willing to get curious to see how much value I could bring to an audience if
Yeah.
I just talk to 10 people next week. Like if I just talk to 10 people, let me see what kind of value I can bring. That's it. Then once you do that, like, oh, okay, now I'll see how much value I could bring at this next step. So you just start talking yourself about getting curious
Yeah.
and letting yourself gradually build to an audience of impact.
Okay. I will say that the first and only time I did this was in front of 100 people. Didn't know it was going to be that big, and I did it. But I was going to say earlier, I could not have done that had I not started this podcast. I mean, had I not been doing this for that long. So when you talk about doing it over and over again, practicing, and even though it's not in front of a huge group, I couldn't have done it at all had I not been comfortable behind a microphone.
Well, it's a foundational element. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that you put yourself in the mindset of, okay, even though I'm going to edit it, I know that I'm just going to have a plan
Right.
and then freely flow from that plan.
Yeah.
And it's important, no, rarely, I don't know, no speaker that I know of goes up and just like wings it. Like there's some thoughts, there's some
Yeah.
notes, there's some sort of plan in their mind, and you put yourself in the situation of being vulnerable, of being willing to put yourself out there, even in a podcast,
Yeah.
to the world. And so, what I just want to tap in here on is the fact that at the root of so many people's fears when it comes to being on stage is rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Right? People will be like, "Oh, I'm just when I get on stage, my hands shake and my voice gets shaky and I sweat and I'm really afraid that I'm going to forget my words. I'm afraid people are going to judge my body and how I look and how I sound and all this blah, blah, blah. All of that boils down to rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be rejected
Right.
by 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, and yet I would just ask you to consider, what if rejection was your best friend? What if rejection was like the greatest thing you could ask for? And it's a mindset shift, because when I don't think of rejection, I think of polarization. So many people who come to us at first want to serve everybody
Yeah.
in their business. Think about it. When we start in our entrepreneurial journey, I want to serve as many people as I possibly can. We take the McDonald's approach, 1 billion served and we've made it. But the riches are in the niches. They say it for a reason, because the narrower you can get in your focus of who you serve and what problem you solve, which goes back to the beginning of what Kim said, which is part of not only putting together a great speech, but putting together and making a great offer of
Right.
a product or a service. When you can do that, then you start to filter out the people who are not going to get it, who are not going to be
Yeah.
all in and passionate about you. And just give me 50 people who are super passionate, who will listen to every podcast, who will buy everything I ever put out, and I'm good.
Right.
I would much rather 50 super engaged people
Yeah.
who know, like, and trust me, and who I can serve at the highest level, than 10,000 people who are kind of like,
Yeah.
it's okay. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do it next time.
He just
So
had a client who had 17 people on his virtual masterclass, and he brought in $650,000 from that audience. Like,
yeah,
it is way
Wow.
more important to have impact with the people you serve than to focus on
Oh,
the numbers that you attract.
yeah.
Focus on the people that you're attracting right now. Serve them so hard,
yeah.
and you can leverage that to impact everybody else.
Yeah.
And then when you go on the stage, you say, you know what, rejection is my best friend, because I'm going to deliver my story, my way, with my unique take on
Right.
life, which no one else in the history of time can possibly have, because
Yeah.
no one has seen the world through my eyes, heard it through my ears, spoken with my tongue, thought with my brain.
Right.
And then the people who are all in, who are all with me, they're going to come along on the journey with me. The people who aren't all in, who are going to be those problem clients, who are going to be that, they're going to go away. They're going to find someone else. Bless
Right.
them.
Yeah.
Because you get the opportunity when you step on the stage or create a podcast, you get to impact 100% of the people who are listening to you.
Yeah.
Even though you may only get to serve 20, 30% of them with an offer or the next podcast or something like that,
Right.
everyone, 100% of the people get impacted, and they can take something away with it. If you're willing to say, rejection's my best friend.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we left listeners with, because you said you have a lot of people who have podcasts listen to your show,
Mhm.
and other individuals as well. Justin, could you give a few tips on the power of the voice, that they could take, some things they could try now
Sure.
to
Absolutely.
implement some practical advice?
Absolutely. There's something that I think we've all experienced in relationships, especially growing up, on the phone, when you're speaking to someone you like, if you're growing up and you're like, oh, teen love. And you can hear when that person is happy. You
Mhm.
can also hear when they're unhappy. And you can also hear when they smile.
Mhm.
Think about it. You can hear when someone is smiling, and there's just something that happens naturally when we smile and we speak. And so it's really interesting that a lot of times in a space like a podcast, which is it's the voice only medium, unless you have a YouTube and all sort of stuff, it it isolates that one of the three to thrive, right? Your voice, your face, your body.
Right.
Whereas on stage, we use all three of those things to express and tell our story, but it's only vocally on a podcast. And so one of the greatest tricks that you can use to create an interesting and exciting and engaging experience is to smile
Mm.
as you're talking, because people can hear that. It adds a warmth to your voice. And then another trick that you can use is the thing that we think we shouldn't do, and that is simply to pause. Using pauses
Yeah.
is so powerful, because I can be talking at a huge clip. And now, right now, I'm not saying anything at all. I'm really not saying anything. Trust me, there's nothing that is coming out of my mouth that is of value, but it's very interesting what happens to the listener's ear as I'm intensely saying nothing. When I stop, and I utilize the power of a pause.
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
Like we want to fill for time, and yet in this audio only experience, it is important that we remember, and I learned this from reading books for Audible, that you slowing down a little bit and giving the listener time to process what it is that you're saying
Yeah.
is really, really vital. And so being able to stop when instead of going, which are filler words, which
Right.
bridge that gap for us, smiling so that it just naturally creates a dynamic vocal performance. And we dive into that later on. But then also utilizing pauses is really powerful, especially if you want to stop and give the audience a moment to really digest something powerful that you said, or you want them to have the space and time to be like, have a thought about it, and ultimately remember and retain the information you're trying to deliver to them.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm learning so much, and that was not the plan for today. I was going to talk about y'all and your program, but I'm learning a lot. So this has
You
been
want to empower
wonderful.
people, want to help people. So how can we come on the show and not be willing to do some of that
That's
work?
true. That
Mhm,
is
mhm.
true. I love it. Well, I'm excited to share this because, like I said, I do know some women. I'm not saying I'm never going to do it. I do know some women that are actively looking for, help with wanting to become speakers. So I'm excited to share what y'all are doing. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you want to tell me before we go?
There is great value in the humility of folks like you, right? That feel like, who am I to do this? But there's also great obligation in that if you have something that can help others, that can impact others, then you've got to figure out a way how,
Yeah.
right? It's not that I can't, it's just how can I? And I know this to be true. The mess of our past was not simply created to be our message, it was created to become someone else's miracle.
Yeah.
And when we can share our story with others in a way to not only inspire them, but to give them a pathway forward to reach their destination, that's how we change the world.
That's interesting because that was when I talked, that's what I talked about. So that's interesting that you would say that. What about you, Justin? Is there anything you want to share before we head out?
Well, yeah, if you have that calling on your heart, just know that it's easy for me or Kim to get up here and talk about what it is that we do, and
Mhm.
after the decades of time that we've put into it, and it's very easy for a listener to be like, oh well, they're famous, or they've Kim sold her business and she's been on the Inc. 5000, but what I don't have that. I don't
Yeah.
have all of that shiny stuff, and yet I I think it's worth considering that when you step on a stage, when you step into a podcast on someone's YouTube,
Mhm.
you become an instant authority. If
Mm.
you are willing to get up there and talk about something you know about, right? You have to
Right.
have the expertise. You have to know about something and believe that you have, and put in the time and effort and energy to figure it out. But you become an instant authority when you step on the stage. That's the power of being on a stage, being on a podcast, because you are there. It's an implied referral by the person inviting you to be on the stage, to be on the
Yeah.
podcast, that you're worth listening to, that your story matters. And so, unlike Kim and I, especially me, considering, I was on American Idol and 30 million people on a weekly basis saw me as the guy who sang on American Idol.
Mhm.
Thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands by this point, of people have seen me as that guy on
Right.
Broadway or that guy on TV. Unlike me, who has to fight through those perceptions that the audience already has about me that may or may not be anything to do with me,
Right.
when someone who has never done it before but has this passion and this calling to do it, when someone steps on the stage, they become an instant authority, and they get to show up as whatever they want to be,
Yeah.
and they get to then and there set the mold and set the pathway for who they want to be, way more easily than maybe even Kim, certainly I, would be able to do.
Yeah.
So when would now be a good time to step on the stage and tell your story? It's my question.
My husband's going to listen to this and go, see, I told you.
Oh, see,
I
you're also
told
been
you.
told that God sends many messengers too to tell you something you need to do. Okay, so we're going to invite you right now that you're going to join us, and maybe a listener will too, but we came on here specifically to say we have a weekly workshop.
Mhm.
It's completely free. We coach you on how to do this in a comfortably confident way.
Okay.
And no matter where you are right now, if you've ever spoken on the stage before or you haven't, you could join us at speakandgrowrichworkshop.com/podcast. That's speakandgrowrichworkshop.com/podcast. And you will join us. We would love for you to come with microphone and camera ready and to be able to coach you. But if you're not there yet, just come, camera off, microphone off, just watch and listen. You make that the first time you ever work with us, and you're going to see how when it's a process you can follow, it feels super comfortable, inspiring, and encouraging to move forward.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for your time. Really do hope you go on that workshop. I think you would really very much enjoy it. Won't call you out. We won't make you get on camera. Just hang out and watch it. And I think you'll pick up a lot that you'll enjoy.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just honored to
Pleasure.
speak to both of you. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I'm excited to share this with everybody.
Oh,
Great.
thanks.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.